Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of FPL SHOW. This is the preview for Gameweek 24. It's going so quick this Premier League season. Today, I am joined by one man. His name is Rod. How's it going, Rod?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, a bit of a shit weekend. Can't lie. It really started bad on Friday, watching United get battered by Middlesbrough. And then it was really just down in the dumps on Saturday when Wales got battered by fucking Ireland. I'm sure Danny would have been laughing somewhere. Obviously, it's just me and you today. Jack's on holiday. I'm sure he'll be back very soon. What did you get up to then, Rod? It's been a bit of a break since the football ended. We've had a bit on since with the transfer window and stuff, but you been up to much?
Not a great deal, mate. It's been a bit odd about football. 2.5 weeks, I think, we're at the Premier League. It's actually been quite nice not having to focus on FPL or make any weird decisions. But not been up to a great deal, mate.
Yeah. I mean, it has been a breaks from the Premier League, but I have consumed quite a lot of football still since it ended. I've been watching a lot of Scottish football for some reason. I do know the reason. It's because Ahmad went on loan to Rangers, so I've been watching Rangers quite a bit. Mixed reviews so far. Also watched a bit of the AFCON, and then we just had the FA Cup weekend, which was pretty entertaining. Anyway, Rod, I'm going to start off with Game Week 23. You had to have done better than me. I've had an absolute stinker. I'm on 29 points, Rod. I cannot look at my team and look at one person who actually showed up. Actually, I can. Brandon Williams, 7 points. That's it. Dennis, for some reason I captained him. He got me a -2. How did you get on?
So, obviously, this is the game week that lasted about 1 million years. But it was a bit of a weird one. The average was 35, which I feel was actually quite a good score for the game week because I scored 36. Luca Dean on 12 did kind of save me, but yeah, like you, I captained Dennis, and that was literally the first game of the game week.
I know.
Set the precedent where he got sent off. So yeah, a bit of a weird game week. I did manage to get a small green arrow, so I've got a green arrow up to 21.6k. So that's not too bad at all, but 36 points, probably one of my lowest this year. But I thank God the game week's over, to be completely honest, mate.
Yeah, I'm really glad it's over as well, and it feels like such a long one because it started off on such a bad note with Dennis getting sent off. I think going into that game, I think a lot of people would have said that Watford were probably the favourites. They were still under Ranieri at that time. That's how long ago it seems. It seems like Ranieri's been gone for a pretty long time. But who are you going to call? Roy Hodgson, man. It's got to be done. So a lot's changed for Watford. Really interested to get talking to you about some of these relegation sides, actually, Rod. But yeah, it did feel like a long one, especially after what I expected to be like the best captain pick for that week. Just pure stupidity. Didn't need to do it. He got sent off. So yeah, I was a bit gutted, but I'm glad it's over, and I'm looking forward to Game Week 24, Rod. So I'm just looking at how the Premier League standings at this moment in time. I mean, at the top, I think at the top it's probably the least interesting season for a bit. Especially with the top three, they're just running away from it. Chelsea are 9 points clear of Manchester United, but United have 2 games in hand. Other than that, you got Arsenal and Tottenham really on United's tails. City are running away with it at the top, 9 points clear of Liverpool, who have 1 game in hand. But I think down the bottom, Rod, this is a really tight relegation battle. I think it could literally go down to the last day. Looking at some of the fixtures and that, I think you could really look up to 15th place with Leeds potentially and say, they're still in the battle for it. Potentially even Brentford, they're only a point more with 2 games played. So I think, anywhere from 14th to 20, I don't think you're safe at this moment in time, Rod.
100%, mate. I think this is a relegation battle that's going to go down in history, where obviously Burnley still have 3 games to play, 3 games on Norwich to play, 2 on the other teams down there. And it's just a win for either team literally puts them in a completely different position. And it's just such a tight relegation battle, and it's basically impossible to call. I think Leeds. I think Leeds are safe. I'll probably go as far as saying Everton are safe, but obviously there's four teams who could easily go down in Norwich, Watford, Newcastle, Burnley, and unfortunately only three can go down. If all four could go down, that would be an absolute treat because I think they should, because they are woeful. But looking at it, it's pretty impossible to call.
Yeah, I'd also be pretty happy if they just sent down 15th and lower. I wouldn't mind that either. But yeah, I mean, let's get into it to start with, Rod. There's in a bit of a crisis. They already sacked one manager at the point of the game, but Watford, they got battered by Norwich, and it was time for Ranieri to leave again. They brought in Roy Hodgson, who, I mean, it's a bit of a strange one for me. I can see why they've done it, but I'm not sure if it's the right move for Watford. What's your thinking on it?
Watford for me, they are a banter club. I think maybe Roy, I admire his dedication for the game, his love for the game, wanting to come back.
Love for that money.
I wouldn't have touched that job with a barge pole. You're more than likely going to get sacked in the first 3 months. And for me, on paper, they've actually got an okay-ish team, but I don't think a manager's ever given enough time to embed their philosophy, tactics, style of play to actually see results, because you're pretty much out the door as soon as you start to get your side playing. And obviously, Roy's first game, a 1-0 draw, 0-0 draw against Burnley, not a bad result, as obviously Burnley are a team down there, but Burnley are slowly picking up points, and Watford could do with picking up points, because they are only just in the bottom three by a point with a game in hand, but they've got some big fixtures coming up, and they've got some very difficult fixtures coming up with West Ham next.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, like you said, about managers being given time, I do agree with you on that. But I also think that like who they brought in, for me, I did like the idea of Ranieri, just because I think I'm a bit of a football romantic, and I think maybe him keeping them up and then winning the season next year would have been pretty cool. But in all real, you got to look at with no bias or anything like that. You just got to look at it as it is. And Ranieri, when he got sacked from Leicester, he was doing a really bad job, to be honest. And other than the season that he won with them, you could say he didn't do that great of a job, and with Chelsea as well. I think there are other options out there who they could have got before Ranieri. But with Ranieri, you know what you was going to get with him, and I don't think there was any point in giving him time. I think when you look at Roy Hodgson, I think he's a manager who, you bring in, but you haven't got him for long, and they're probably already got a short list of who they're going to bring in again. I wouldn't be surprised if Roy isn't with Watford in March. Looking at their fixtures, Rod, Watford, I think they got quite a tough run. Their next 5 games, well, let's start off with them against West Ham. That's not an easy game, going away to the London Stadium. And for me, I don't see them winning any of their next 5. I don't think they'll beat West Ham. I definitely don't think they'll beat Brighton at home. I don't think they'll beat you. I don't think they'll beat Palace, but I think they'll beat United. That's just sort of sums up, really. What do you think about these fixtures, Rob? Quite hard. So West Ham, Brighton, Villa, Palace, United.
So, like, on paper, I think they're quite difficult fixtures, but when you're in a relegation battle, anything can happen. And Watford did beat us in the return leg on the very first day of the season. But for me, they look like a disjointed team. There's no fluidity in the play. And obviously, it's impossible to embed any fluidity when managers are constantly getting changed. So, obviously, since we played them, this would be their second manager, and we played them in August. Third manager, sorry.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. West Ham next away. Big game. West Ham are on form. They've been looking good. Obviously, bar the little almost blip in the FA Cup, I think West Ham have been quite a solid team. You know what you're going to get, and I expect Bowen and Antonio to be firing on all cylinders. But I don't know. I do worry for them, and especially in the next 5 games, they need to pick up at least at least 6 points, but I can't see him getting any more than 3.
Yeah, and for me, their last 3 games of the season, which I think could be the real vital ones for them, they're, for me, what I would say a 1 or 2 point maximum from these last 3. They got Palace away, Leicester at home, then Chelsea away on the last day of the season. For me, it's just tough. I really like their squad. I think they got a good group of players, a lot of quality. They've got Premier League experience in there as well. But for me, something just seems wrong. I'm not a big fan of watching them in terms of, I think they've got characters in there who look a bit disjointed. You know, you're constantly seeing what's his name, João Pedro and Joshua King almost arguing at each other over passing the ball to one another. They just look a bit, you know, they don't look like a well, I forgot the word now, but they don't look like a unit. And for me, I think that's exactly what you need to get out the relegation battle.
That's where I feel other teams in the bottom, say bottom 4, that's where they've got advantages over Watford, where they've had their managers for a bit longer. They're stronger cohesion. They kind of know each other. Whereas you made a good point about, especially about João Pedro and Josh King, where they're just arguing with each other, and you can't have that in a relegation battle, because every minute of every game really matters, and you've got to be there fighting for each other, not fighting with each other.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Next up, let's talk about Newcastle United, Rod. So they're big spenders in the window, I guess you could say. I think they might be the top spenders in the Premier League in January. Wouldn't surprise me. They have brought in players of quality. I think they made maybe a couple of questionable moves. With Dan Burn and Chris Wood. Their next lot of fixtures are, I don't know why, but I didn't feel like they're the worst fixtures for them. They've got 2 home games with Everton, Villa, and then they go away to West Ham and Brentford, followed by a home game against Brighton. Is it just me, or do you feel a bit more confident in them because of the January signings?
Yeah, 100%. And I think if you spoke to any Newcastle fan a couple months ago, they were like, if we can get to January and still be in touch and distance of getting out of the relegation zone, then they're going to take that. And they've got to January. They have made some shrewd signings. I am a fan of some of their signings, especially Trippier. I do quite like Dan Burn. I think he adds a bit of security at the back. Chris Wood off arrival, bit of shrewd business as well. And I'm not really too sure about Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah,
I've heard good things, but they've done some good business, and as a Newcastle fan, I'd be feeling more confident. I won't be feeling completely confident, but more confident that they can get out of it. And a game against Everton next, it's going to be really interesting to see if Everton have that new manager bounce. Newcastle at home, the crowd after the international break, it's going to be bouncing, and Everton, Villa, and West Ham in the next 3. As a Newcastle fan, I'd be quite optimistic towards these games. Two games at home in the next 3. That's where they're going to try and have to pick up their points.
Yeah, and for me, I think you're right about the having the home game against Everton's big. I think if it was away, I don't think I'd favour them as much. But obviously, St James's Park packed, a late kickoff on I think Saturday, the 8th, or Sunday. Either way, anyway, you know it's going to be bouncing in there. Same for Tuesday. It's on, my bad. My maths is all over the fucking shop. Well, just my head in general. But they got you as well on the Sunday, 2:00 kickoff. It's going to be bouncing in there. And for me, like you said, their signings, I think the good thing they got for a lot of them is the Premier League proven. And I think that was something they were probably looking for in the window. Guimaraes, like you said, don't know a lot about him. I'm not a big fan of French football. Like, even if it's on the TV, I tend to look for something else. Just not a fan in general of the league. But from people who I, hold their opinions very highly, who I like to tune into and take a listen at, who have seen him, they said great things. Or they say someone who, played in the Lyon system, which was very reliant on possession football. He's very good at moving the ball forward. And I think that's something Newcastle desperately needed in their team. The other thing I think what Newcastle have got in favour from is the ability of, they've got Norwich and Burnley in their last 5. I guess you could say the disadvantage of those is the fact both of them are away from home. But I think the fact that they'll know what sort of position they're in terms of them games, it's going to give them a chance to change something or, go all out for it in 2 games, which are definitely could be massive 6-pointers.
Oh, absolutely huge, mate. And the January, it was a huge month for them, and I do want to see him go down though, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from with that. I think if they stay up, it's only a season or 2 away from them being in that mix for Europe. And I'm sure as a Villa fan and as a United fan myself, as we're slowing down a lot, and I can see us being pulled back even further, even to team who's possibly in 8th place. I see like the likes of you and Newcastle as teams who are desperately trying to get in a sort of position where they can fight for European places and then push on. Clubs going in the right direction. And I think for you, I can definitely see why Newcastle staying up could be a real worry for you, as your team is also looking to make that climb to be a European team once again. Moving on now, Rod, to Norwich. Norwich for me is a bit of a weird one. I feel like out of the bottom 4, I think they'll be the more comfortable with going down. However, I think the team they've got, obviously, they spent quite a bit in the summer, didn't spend anything in January. I think the manager is, I think for the situation they're in, Dean Smith is probably as good as you can really get for that sort of situation. I think he is a team builder. I think he knows, he's a good man manager. He knows, who he needs to put an arm around, who needs to give a bit of a bollocking to. And the team in general, I don't think it's as weak as a lot of people make out. I think in certain positions anyway, they definitely lack what's probably necessary. I think left back's one of them, and I think they really need a better spine in general. I think centre back's a position they've been desperate for a while. I think Omobamidele he definitely looks good, but is he ready for the top flight right now? I'm not sure. I think another season in the Championship could definitely benefit him, but I think for a young centre back like that, you need someone more experienced who is of a better level of probably someone like a Grant Hanley. I think they could do with, maybe just if they had like Tarkowski, I'd say right now they're staying up. But the fact that the centre-back position is a bit shaky, I'm not too sure. Their next fixtures anyway, they've got Crystal Palace at home, which is a game where I think they'll be looking to get 3 points out of, in all honesty. I think it'll be hard, but I do think it's a winnable game for them. Then they have a bit of a tricky spell. They have City at home, followed by Liverpool away. I think that's a 0-pointer for me. They then have Southampton away, which I think is a real tricky game for most teams, with the way Southampton like to press you and stuff. And then they've got Brentford at home, which is another winnable game. They also play Leeds, and towards the back end of the season, final day, they have Spurs. Before that, they have Wolves, and then they have West Ham. So their last games are really difficult. They've got a bit of a tricky spell coming up, but there's definitely some winnable games in there for them.
I think you've made a very good point about Dean Smith. He's a very good manager in terms of managing his players, knowing when to put his arm around them, when to give them a bollocking. And important point to note is that they've played the most games out of the bottom 4, and they do have the worst goal difference. So I feel like 3 points for them in every game means even more, because if, say, they are to drop points and the teams around them do pick up points, those points are going to feel exaggerated because of how poor Norwich's goal difference is. And I think, especially this year, where it's so tight, goal difference could be the deciding factor between whether they stay up or go down.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point with goal difference, how tight it actually is down there. I do think one of these teams might be able to pull away. I'm not too sure who it is yet. I don't think Norwich have that ability, but I think what you said with goal difference could be actually really important because of how they do have a bit of a tricky fixture list, and also they're not a very clinical team. I think it's massive for them that in their last game against, I don't know if they play, no, yeah, their last game against Watford, I think it was, that they was able to score quite a few goals. And for Sargent to score, I think, was massive because it'll be a big confidence booster for him. I think he scored 2 in the game. Yeah, 2 in the game. And I think he was actually really good. And I think he's got some attributes which actually really suit the Premier League. I think he's big. He seems to be quite athletic, and he's quite young, so he's definitely got room to improve, and he's got the time to do it in as well. However, what Norwich need right now is someone who is just going to find the back of the net consistently for them. I'm not sure if Sargent's that yet, but obviously the confidence booster will be huge. I'm not sure Pukki is. I think Pukki's got great movement, but really lacks that killer instinct in front of goal. So I don't know who's going to do it do it for them. Obviously, a player who I didn't rate too highly, Todd Cantwell, has left the club now to go on loan to Bournemouth, which I thought was a bit of a weird one. I don't rate him that highly, but at the same time, to let someone go, you must be pretty confident in the rest of the lads. So I back Dean Smith on that, Rod.
Just like looking at the last 3 games, so obviously they beat Everton 2-1 in the Premier League, they beat Watford 3-0, and then on Saturday they beat Wolves in the Cup 1-0, so their confidence is going to be flowing, the morale is going to be flowing, and
I think this Leicester, they got their they do have Crystal Palace next, but I mean they got Leicester as well, which I'm sure will be within somewhere in probably towards the end of March or something like that, or in April they'll play Leicester in a game. If that game was happening tomorrow, I'd back Norwich, man, because Leicester are in poor form, but like at home at Crystal Palace, I don't think it's an unwinnable game for them. It's the game against City and Liverpool, which are like, you're not going to get anything out of it, which is a bit of a momentum it's not a booster, it's a bit of a downer, like, from, do you know what I mean? Because to come in, if they could get a win against Crystal Palace, their form, 4 wins in a row, that it'd be sky high. But just to have it, tainted a bit by which will inevitably be 2 losses. But I mean, it's football, you never know, Rod.
especially
go on.
When you're down there, anything can literally happen. You can pull out the most bizarre results because you're fighting for your life and you're putting everything on the line. And if you come up against a team and they're having a bad day and you're having a great day, then literally anything can happen. And I think we saw it with Southampton against Man City, where Man City have been flying. They've been destroying everyone in every game, but Southampton, they put on a good show and they managed to draw with City. So if you're flying, then anything can happen.
Exactly, yeah. So up next, Rob, Burnley. For me, out of the teams, I'd say this is the most, united group down there in terms of players, managers. They all know what they're there for. They all know who they are. They know what they're good at. They know what they're bad at. They don't try and play out from the back. That's not the team they are. They're Burnley. They're going to stick to what they do. I think that gives them a factor that maybe a couple of teams down here, like a Norwich, I think they're the closest to Burnley. But Newcastle, they're a group of players with mixed abilities, I'd say. I think some players are clearly not good enough, and there's others who probably are a bit better than the Newcastle standard at the moment. Under a new manager, they've not necessarily got that style of play which you go, yeah, I know what Newcastle are now. I think same with Watford, bringing in a new manager. They got very different sort of players and backgrounds and stories. I think Burnley is the one club, and I think Norwich is there as well, but the one club where everything is, right, I know what it is. And for me, I think that gives them an edge down there. I think their fixture list is quite difficult, but with Dean Smith and Burnley, I don't think and bringing in Weghorst, I wasn't that. I mean, how can you say I wasn't impressed by him necessarily? But I was in other ways. I thought some of the shots and stuff he had was a bit poor, but I think what he did show was he's going to be a nuisance to teams. Obviously, very big. 6'6" for a Premier League striker, and Burnley, I think that just goes hand in hand. I think if you can get a bit of finishing down, he could be a handful for a lot of teams. A fixture run, however, Rod, goes as Manchester United at home, Liverpool at home, Brighton away, Spurs at home, and then Palace away. For me, Rod, I think United's a winnable game for them on Tuesday.
To be completely honest, mate, I think Burnley are in one of the better positions down there. Obviously, I do always rate points on the board more than anything.
Yeah.
But obviously, Burnley sitting bottom of the league, but Norwich sitting 17th, and Burnley have 3 games in hand on them and 3 points behind them. So they're not sitting too poorly. They've got a lot of games to play, but you just listing off the next fixtures, there are some real tricky ones there, and they will look at the United one as a winnable game. Yeah. I think anyone of United this year, and they're not scared. But then the Liverpool after that, Brighton, Spurs, like they have got some difficult fixtures, to be completely honest with you, and they are going to take merit from their last 2 games though, where they've managed to keep 2 clean sheets, managed to keep Arsenal at bay, drawing 0-0 with them, and then obviously keeping Watford at bay, drawing 0-0 with them. So, you know what Burnley are like, you know exactly how they're going to set up. It's going to be a 4-4-2. Everyone knows their roles, and Sean Dyche, if they are going to stay up, then I would put money on Sean Dyche being able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Rod, on that. Like you said, the fixtures are tricky, but I think there are games, like, obviously, I think against the top 3, they got no chance, but I think when they look at anyone else, I think they can go, we've definitely got a shout at a point at least. I think against Spurs at home, that's a game where you can get a point because of how they play. I don't think Spurs have been shown to be that effective of a team so far. Their last game of the season, Rod, is an unreal one, and it's such a shame that on the last day all the games are on at the same time, because it could be the decider for who goes down. It's Burnley against Newcastle, Rod.
That will be very interesting. Similar to a couple years ago, where I like when things come down to like the very last day of the season, where Villa, their fight for survival also came down to the last year a couple years ago, and it just makes it even more interesting. And you constantly refreshing the scores, you're switching between the games, and if it does come down to the last day, then wow, it's going to be exhilarating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested, and like I said to you actually before we started filming, I'm not like, I don't think the Premier League's the most interesting at the moment at the top, but at the bottom it's literally like one result changes everything. I think you look before the Watford Norwich game, I think most people were saying Norwich are down, but now I think a lot of people are like, Norwich could stay up, you know, and Watford are definitely going down. I think that's the way a lot of people are looking at it. So, real interesting. It's almost like a race in itself. I don't know what you got. Relegation battle just doesn't do its service, I don't think, but it's going to be interesting. Was it nevertheless? Yeah. Anyway, moving on, we're going to talk about a team who, you know, I wouldn't say are clear of relegation right now. I think it's very exciting what's happened. For me, I think they didn't have the best transfer window, but I think they had the most interesting one in terms of the Premier League. We're talking about Everton, Rod. Manager's gone, Rafa's gone. Just collected his paycheck from Liverpool for tanking Everton. Lampard in. I think it's an interesting one. I'm excited to get your thoughts on it. Go on.
Yeah, I do like the appointment. Obviously, the winning on the weekend, FA Cup, bringing in some big players, which I didn't really think he could have at Everton. But bringing in Van der Beek and Dele Alli, that adds extra strength and power to the midfield. And for me, on paper, Everton have a very, very good team, and their position in the league isn't justified. But obviously, football isn't played on paper; it's played on grass, and they have been poor this year.
Yeah. For you, like, what are your opinions on Lampard as a manager? Because I think it's very clouded. I think a lot of people jump to say, "Oh, he's not a great manager" and stuff like that, which I think is potentially unfair. For me, I think what he did with Derby was impressive, almost getting them up with the team they had as well. I don't think that team was necessarily great. Obviously, did have some good talent in there. Obviously, like some Mason Mount. But what he did with Chelsea of that first year, not being able to spend a penny, I thought was also really good. Obviously, the downfall came when he did get the money. But what's your initial impressions of Lampard from what you've seen?
So I think people are overstating how bad a job he did at Chelsea. I don't think he did too bad of a job. I thought they had a transfer embargo. He brought through some young players. I thought he did a decent job at Chelsea. He had a lot of pressure, and maybe probably shouldn't have been gifted that job straight from Derby. But I think he did an okay job. I think at Derby he did a fairly good job, but they did pin a lot of hope on going up and beating us. But because they didn't, now they're in all sorts of trouble. But I think Everton, fresh start for him. I think he will do well. He'll have respect of the players, similar to Gerrard, etc. Especially the midfield, they're going to want to work with him. Very good player in his time. I think he'll do well. For me, though, this year is probably just about embedding his tactics, philosophy, style of play, because I don't really think they can achieve too much this year. Obviously, mid-table finish probably, but poor first 20 games or so. The season where going into it, they were probably looking at the European places. Now they're very difficult to achieve. So I think, this year it's about embedding his philosophy, style, coaching, and then go again next year.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Obviously, I think the first job is to just pick up a couple points, and I think with the fixtures they got, they can definitely do that. Let's go step by step of the transfer market then with them, Rod. Obviously, I think the move to get rid of Digne is one which I'm not sure if they'll regret now. I think if they could have held on to him and just got rid of Rafa right then, would he have stayed? Because he is a player of that quality where, if he stays at Everton and they can get a couple more transfers in and it looks like Lampard is the guy, they're not a club who's a million miles away from challenging for Europe either. Losing Digne, they obviously did bring in the left back from Ukraine. I think it's Mylenko or something like that. It's got an O on the end, that's one thing I'm sure. And they also brought in the young lad from Rangers, right back. I can see him in my head, but I can't picture his name. Obviously as a Villa fan, I know you're over the moon with getting him, but were you shocked at the fact that it was so easy for them to get rid of him and ended up keeping Rafa?
I mean, Agent Rafa, he shipped a load of the medical team, a load of backroom staff, and obviously the board ended up shipping Dean because he fell out with Rafa, and then they got rid of Rafa a few days after. So I think we jumped on a poor situation from them. I'm over the moon with Dean. He's a brilliant player, and I'm more than certain he would have been in Lampard's plans had he come in before. But I think they've done some good business, and brought in some good quality players. And I think I do just quite like their team on paper. Yeah. They've got some exciting, like a midfield of God knows how they're going to play it, but they've got the choice of Dele, Van der Beek, Decore, Alan, Andre Gomez. There's some really, really good good players in there.
Yeah, for me, I think let's just talk about Donny in particular, then we'll talk about Dele after. But for me, I think Donny's an interesting one. I would have preferred for him to go to Crystal Palace. At Palace, I know he's going to play as a number 8 for them, and it would have been interesting to see him in that position, because that's the position I think that, if he was to come back for United and get a fair run of things, because all you hear out of United is that a lot of the players are actually confused with how he's not getting game time because of how hard he trains and, how good he looks in training. And that's confusing for me, because 2 managers now haven't picked him, and it's real strange because for me they picked lesser players ahead of him. For me at Everton, I think there is still a question mark of where he's going to play. Hopefully, and what I'd like to see and what I think is going to happen, I think, even though I really like Doucouré, I think they're going to probably play Alan and Donny next to each other. Sorry, and I think for Everton, it's actually a real good deal, because I don't think there's any guarantee, even under the next manager, unless it was Ten Hag, I don't think he'd stay at United, and I think it's a deal they could get him back in the summer now, Rod.
100%, mate. And it's going to be actually interesting to see how Donny plays, if he plays, and the quality that he does have. Because obviously he was very good at Ajax. He's been brought to United, barely had any game time. So now he's under a new manager, new team, and he could do really well. And it's going to be interesting to see the formation Lampard sort of plays and where he plays each player. And if Donny can do real well, then I don't see why he shouldn't get into the side at United.
Yeah, I think, but for me, that's the thing. Like, I'm actually really interested in seeing play, and as a United fan, especially I'll be tuning into a lot of Everton games now, just to, I've been checking in on Rangers, which is something I never thought I'd do, to be fair. But I really enjoyed the Scottish Premier League as well watching it. I thought it was quite entertaining. But let's talk about Dele. For me, Rod, this is the most exciting one for two reasons. I think what he showed earlier in his career, where he broke through at Tottenham after the move from MK Dons, I think. And then, he was... That trajectory he was showing was amazing at one point. But then just real flat for about 3 or 4 years now, Rod. But for me, the reason I find it so interesting is because of Lampard. I think they're very different in terms of, how they play the game. And, obviously Lampard is one of the, best midfielders in the Premier League era for sure. But the thing I really like is the fact that Lampard was so good at coming into the box late, and I think that's something that Dele really suits. And I think at Everton now, he's probably going to be playing right behind the striker. And with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Dele Alli, I think it could be a really great partnership. And if he hits the hits the road running, or whatever the saying is, I think he could be a brilliant pickup as well for FPL.
100%, mate. And I think I've always admired Dele. What's been his sticking point is his attitude, and I think we saw it in the All or Nothing documentary of Amazon when they were at Spurs. Mourinho's called him in, said obviously he rates his talent, etc., but his attitude and everything, he doesn't apply it well enough. So new club, new team, similar to Donny. I think he's definitely going to show us the quality he has, and we've seen it over the years. We know it's in there, but it's sort of all about unlocking it. And yeah, if he could strike a partnership with Calvert-Lewin, it's going to be deadly, and they are going to score goals. And as a Villa fan, I am happy now that we've played them twice and managed to get 6 points, because I think going forward they're going to be quite a good side. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a permanent deal for Dele, isn't it?
Yes, a bit of mixed reports coming out of it. Initially, I'm pretty sure it's the case actually, that it's a free transfer with obligations that they must pay certain fees after certain milestones, such as appearances. I think there's one like after 20 appearances you have to pay 10 mil. 10 or 20 mil. But, I think the maximum of it is 40 million. But I think if Dele could show any consistency of the player that he has showed before, it'll definitely be worth it for me.
100%. There's no question he's got talent, he's got skill, and if Lampard can sort his attitude out, and I mean, it comes down to Dele at the end of the day. If he wants to play football, if he wants to play in the Premier League, then he needs to sort it out, and I've no doubt that he will, because he is a great player, and he's a very exciting player.
Yeah, I think Lampard is actually the sort of manager that could get out of him. Obviously, English, relate, they know that. But I think, you look at the last two managers, well, other than, what's his name, ex-Wolves manager?
Nuno.
Yeah, other than Nuno, I think you look at Mourinho and Conte, and you can picture what their dressing room's like. They look like very shouty managers. I'm sure Lampard is as well. But I don't think that's the sort of thing that Dele needs. I think Dele needs almost like... I think he would have been good under Ollie, because Ollie was everyone's friend, as it seemed. And I think that's the sort of character he is, that he probably does need arm around shoulder. Yeah.
And just touching on Dele as well, he is 25, so he's still not in his complete prime. He's still coming into his prime, and he's definitely got at least 7-8 years left. And if he can find his prime, then they've got some player on their hands.
Yeah, and it's completely possible that he will never be the player that he once was, and that would be a shame because I think a better Dele Alli definitely makes the Premier League very exciting, and going to a team like Everton, giving them a bit of quality could, just the more better teams in the Premier League, the better for viewing purposes. Obviously, as a United fan, it's not necessarily better because we're so shit and everyone else is so good, but it is what it is. And for me, I think there's one or two ways that this will go. I think either Dele's gone up there, he's gone, yeah, paycheck, nice, cushy, another 4 years, and doesn't give a fuck, and it's not going to end very well for him, and we never see the Dele Alli of old. I think there's another one where that potentially comes in now, under the tutelage of Lampard, he could show something, maybe add things to his game as well, because obviously I think form's the main thing and stuff like that, because he when he was playing well, he had a lot of abilities. He's quite tall as well. He's 6'2". He's really good at striking the ball, good finisher, but volley stuff like that. I think under Lampard as well, he could learn a lot of things. And for him, this is a chance now to get into that World Cup squad, because he's got the end of this season with Everton and the start of next season to get into that World Cup squad. And I think for England as well, he'd be a great signing.
100%, and not with Southgate, I think it's been very difficult because he has his favourites. He has who he wants in the squad, and he tends not to look at players if they're not playing in, say, the top 6 of the Premier League. So it'd be hard for him to break into the squad, but I don't doubt that he can do it, but it will be quite difficult with Southgate.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult, of course, but because there are so many players in and around that position that, he'd be going up against, like Foden, and, but this is a chance for him at least, and if he could just show 75% of what he was at one point, I think he'd be up there for England, as, he is something different, and I think it could be a great option in the long run. Anyway, Rod, game week 24, let's talk through some of these fixtures anyway. Starts tomorrow night, so I better get this video up quickly. Newcastle playing Everton. How do you see this one going?
I think this will be the game I probably watch before switching on to a different one, which we'll get onto. But for me, quite an exciting game. Newcastle fans are going to be very excited to watch their newly assembled squad. Obviously, Lampard, new manager, bounced with Everton. I think it's going to be quite an exciting game. To be honest, I don't really. I'm going to have to actually go with Newcastle. I think being at home is going to definitely help them because, like, this year, with football going back to normal, home advantage is a thing once again, and it's good to see. So I am going to go over Newcastle 2-1 win, but I am quite excited for this game. I think it's going to be quite high quality.
Yeah. I wish kind of like United were probably playing on. It's hard to say. I wish we were playing on Monday or Friday because there's a game every night which I'm really interested in watching. This Newcastle game is definitely one I'd love to watch from start to finish. Obviously, I'll probably just be tuning in at the start and then a bit at halftime of the United game. But for me, I'm interested to see what Everton look like, but also I'm really interested to see, is Dan Burn a starter for Newcastle straight away, and like what sort of position is he going to pick up for them? Are they going to go with a back four and potentially play him at left back, or are they going to go with a back three where he'd fit in very nicely? I'm also interested to see Guimaraes for them. I think it's exciting to see with Newcastle. Also, on the other hand, Everton coming in with a big win under Lampard. I think it was 4-1 in the FA Cup. So, it's a real tight one to call, Rod. I'd probably go with a draw on this one. Maybe like a 2-2 draw. I think defence for both teams is probably the weakest area. So I'll go with a 2-2 draw. West Ham against Watford is the other game. I think it's going to go bad for Roy.
And I do completely agree with you. My fellow party goer, Jarrod Bowen, I think he's gonna thrive. Hopefully, Antonio is
your
fit.
Best friend.
He is my best friend. Antonio is currently flagged on FPL, but West Ham at home against a leggy Watford side. I'm gonna have to go over West Ham 2-0 win.
Yeah. I don't see it going any other way, really. I'd be really shocked if Watford went there and won. I'm going to go 3-0 West Ham. Burnley against United, I'll kick this one off. I think it's going to go bad, man. I think United performance the other day, so a lot of fans saying it was just bad the whole way through, and it wasn't. It was bad for the second half onwards. But I think what United did show was how would you say it? The ability to create chances. They didn't show the ability to take them. I mean, you can say what you want about the fucking Middlesbrough goal. Shouldn't have counted, but shit happens. We could have scored 5 or 6 in that game quite easily. But the thing against Burnley is obviously better opposition. I think United did play with Rashford on the right the other night. I think that was probably to try and stop him from cutting in and shooting. Didn't exactly work as he tried doing it on his left foot this time. I'd love to see him play Jadon Sancho on the right hand side. I think he did move there in the second half against Middlesbrough for a bit, and I think what you saw with him was his ability just to check where he is, get down the line, get his head up, put a ball in the box. And I think with Ronaldo in there, it could be interesting. What I think's going to happen is he's going to play Rashford on the right hand side again, and I think it's going to be difficult to break down Burnley, and I think it might be a dull one. I think it might be 1-1. I'm pretty confident in that, actually. I'm going to go 1-1.
Interesting. I don't feel like you're going to struggle. I think Burnley are pretty woeful. What they are good at is defending, so I feel like you're going to have to do a lot of that, especially with the attacking quality you have. I think Elanga, he's excited me the last couple of games. He looked very, very good. So I think Elanga, I see him doing quite well. I do see Weghorst causing Maguire some issues, but I'm sure Varane will deal with him with ease. I'm going to go for a comfortable 2-0 United win.
Jesus, I didn't think comfortable and United were allowed in the same sentence. Right, and Wednesday night, Rod, Man City against Brentford. I think this is a game... it's just going to be shit. Do not watch this game unless you are a Brentford or City fan, because it's not worth watching. For me, I don't think there's... I prefer to watch Ligue 1 than watch Man City play, Rod.
Mate, I'm with you here. I think we saw this game earlier on in the year. It was on a Sunday. I remember I was hungover watching it, and it made my hangover worse. I just don't. I hate watching City, and you are a masochist if you are going to watch this game. Obviously, if you're a fan of either side, it's completely understandable. But as a neutral, you are a masochist if you watch this game. I am captaining Cancelo, I believe. So okay. I do feel like Man City will keep a clean sheet. Defensively, they look very resolute, but I can't see it being an entertaining game. I'm going to go for a 2-0 City win.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hope Brentford fucking smash them, to be honest, but never going to happen in a million years. I think the way City play, where I think they score so many goals because the defence turns off for other teams because they just pass it, so much that... But anyway, I'm going to go with a Man City 3-0 win. Norwich against Crystal Palace. I think this is a really interesting game, just because of Norwich, the form they're coming into the game with. I think they could get a win in this one, actually. Right, I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich.
2-1 Norwich? That is interesting. I see why you've gone with that. But for me, especially in the last few games, Palace have really quite excited me. I think Elise getting him for 6 million from Reading, absolute brilliant deal. He's such an exciting young player. I think he's like 20 years old or something.
Yes.
Edouard looked really good recently. They do quite excite me. Vieira's got them playing a nice style of football. I think they're going to have slightly too much for Norwich. While Norwich are at home, I do feel like Palace will win 2-1.
Yeah, and I like the fact that with Elise, he didn't go, right, you're starting every single game. It took time to bed him in. I watched him in the third or fourth, I think third round of the FA Cup. I think they played Millwall. And he scored and assisted, I think, in that game. He was brilliant. And he's definitely exciting talent. And with Eze as well, very interesting for Crystal Palace fans. Spurs against Southampton next, Rod. How'd you see it go?
Um, See, this game, obviously, the return leg it happened on. I remember it was the 29th of December because I was on a
Fucking
pub
hell.
crawl. And I remember watching it and I was thinking, oh, mate, Spurs are going to turn these over with ease. And it didn't happen, and I don't think it's going to happen this time round. While they have brought in some good players in Kulusevski, Bentancur, etc., I don't think it's going to be an easy game by any stretch for Spurs. I think Southampton, they always put in a solid performance. Bro, yeah, I think he's going to cause Spurs some problems. So I'm going to go over 1-1. I do think though it is going to be quite a boring game, similar to Man City Brentford. But
Yeah,
yeah, one.
yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I think with Southampton, you have more of an idea of how they're going to play. Like you said, they've got threats all over the pitch, really. Not necessarily as like goal scorers all over the pitch, but like, James Ward-Prowse from midfield, you see him getting a free kick and potentially scoring. I think Broyer's been brilliant. I think going into the season, everyone was like, I forgot, it's Adam Armstrong, who they signed from Blackburn. Oh, this is the guy. But it's kind of just been overshadowed by Broyer on loan from Chelsea. I think it's been absolutely brilliant, and I'd be delighted if they could actually sign him because I think he's, gonna get a lot of game time for them, and he's definitely looks like a special talent. For Spurs, on the other hand, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to see. I'd like to think that Winks wouldn't play in this game, and that Bentancur will get a run out. For me, though, Kulusevski's the sort of one who is Swedish, I remember. I said Ukrainian in one video by accident, got my flags mixed up. But yeah, he's the sort of player I don't think they should chuck in straight away necessarily, as I think he's someone who might just take a little bit of time to bed into the Premier League. I'm going to go with a 2-2 game here, Rod. I have a feeling Ward-Prowse is going to score a free kick or a penalty in this one. So yeah, 2-2. Aston Villa against Leeds, Rod, you got to be pretty confident, right?
So I've just had a look at the Leeds team news. They are going to be without Firpo. They're going to be without Bamford, obviously. They're going to be without Calvin Phillips and Liam Cooper. So there's some big players missing.
Yeah, a lot of leadership as well missing.
Exactly. Rafinha does scare me, though, to be completely honest with you. We are at home. This is the first time this year we would have played them, as obviously the return fixture got cancelled. Postponed due to COVID. But I've got two results in my mind. Watching the Everton game, I think we did what we had to do. We managed to grind out the result, which we haven't done in recent times. So I know we've got the fight in us, we've got the quality, and hopefully you see Coutinho shine. Would love another goal at Villa Park. So the two results I have in my head, I think we either beat them 2-1 or we draw 2-2. So I'm a bit stuck in. But
I think you've got to be a bit more confident. I think the way Leeds play and the amount of first team players they're missing, who not only are pivotal to the way they play, but are big leaders in the side. I think you've got to be looking at a bigger result here, Rod. I'm going to go. Just to let you know beforehand, I'm going to be going with a 4-1 Aston Villa.
I rate the belief, but we've struggled to score more than 2 goals this year.
It's funny, right? Because you're like, I don't think we're really going to get a great result. And like with United, I'm like, yeah, we're going to do shit. But for both people, it's like I go, oh, Villa smash them, and you're like, yeah, United with ease. And it's like the other night when you go, yeah, this Middlesbrough team looks pretty shit. You should do this easy, and we lost.
I did say that on paper. It looked quite poor compared to your Supers team, but yeah, I guess it's easier when you're commenting on other opposition teams compared to your own. But this, for me though, I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I think it's going to be free flowing, end to end. So, with final result, I'm going to go 2-1 Villa.
Yeah, I think 4-1. I just think the quality that they're missing and the quality you've now got is there's a big gap in quality in the game. I'm going to say I'm like one of those scousers. Like I think it's Jamie Carragher or someone who just says quality over and over again on Sky. But yeah. But also for me, Rod, like you said, the Everton game was, I think, in some ways was impressive with the fact that it wasn't an easy game, very hostile crowd. And you got the job done. I won't lie. It was one of those games. It was a lunchtime kickoff. I just had my lunch. And you get that post-lunch tiredness. I fell asleep in the second half, but from what I saw from the first half, very impressive, Rod. Liverpool against Leicester is on Thursday. I think this is a game I'm going to be watching. I think Leicester are in a bit of shit, and I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 weeks we're saying, "Oh, Brendan Rodgers is on the job hunt again."
I think for me, after his interview yesterday, where he was kind of Mourinho-esque, where he was saying a lot of players at the club aren't good enough, and they're going to have to find a new club soon. That doesn't really bode well for his position, and I think he's probably got this game against Liverpool as his last. If they don't have an improved performance or if they don't get a result, I do think he's gone. Salah and Mane are meant to be back for this game. Salah's
Yeah.
definitely training tomorrow. He's eager to play. Obviously, they've got Diaz. Yeah, to be honest, though, we said a few weeks ago when they played, we all gapped in Salah and they ended up losing 1-0. But this is a game Liverpool have to look at, and like, they need to keep up the race. They are 9 points behind City with a game in hand, so they need to keep winning. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 Liverpool win.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be one of his last for sure. I think this could be a big win for Liverpool. I'll probably go 4-0, but after watching Liverpool Cardiff on the weekend, I think Liverpool can be quite excited. Obviously, having Salah and Mane coming back, I think they'll probably lose one of them in the summer. And for me, I think, that they should be excited. Obviously, they've just brought in Luis Diaz, and I thought, from what I saw of him, I thought he looked decent. He obviously set up the one goal. I don't think it went down as an assist because Jota got a touch on it, but it was a great bit of skill after a great bit of pressing when, Cardiff were just dilly-dallying on the ball at the back. But for me as well, to get Harvey Elliott back, obviously, I don't necessarily think he's like all that good, but I think the energy he brings into the team and his want to win is quite impressive for them. And it'd be interesting to see how he can progress from here now after that bad injury at the start of the season. So I think something to look forward for Liverpool fans. And with the two players coming back, I don't necessarily think they'll both start, but I think Jota's just been doing a job at the minute. The guy scores goals. For someone who's not exactly tall, he is brilliant in the air. And I think this is 4-0 for me. Wolves versus Arsenal finishes the game week prod. I think Arsenal are in the shit a bit, not signing a striker. What do you think?
Yeah, mate, 100%. I think they're pretty threadbare up there. Obviously, Aubameyang terminated his contract. He's at Barca. I don't really rate Lacazette too highly. I think he's okay. Wolves, they're on form, and to be completely honest, I wouldn't be overly surprised if Wolves did get a result here. Like, looking at the table, so both Arsenal and Wolves have played 21 games. Arsenal on 36 points, Wolves on 34. So a win for Wolves takes them above Arsenal by a point. And for me, I do think this would be quite an exciting game. So I'm probably going to go 2-2.
Yeah, I think I just brought the table back up while you was talking about the games, and I think what you do see from it, obviously, Wolves have a +10 goal difference and Arsenal's is +8, but Wolves have only scored 19 goals compared to Arsenal's 33. Defensively, they're very strong. Definitely one of the strongest defensive teams in the league. I think they're the second best defensive team in the league, other than Manchester City, who's conceded 14 goals, which is just crazy this far into the season. But Wolves only conceded 16. It's at the other end that they struggle a bit, but I think with players coming back, Jimenez is coming back to the player that he once was, which is great to see. And also, the one I'm really interested in is Trincao coming back again. I think he's got something. When I watch him, I think he's quality. But if they can get those goals back, it's very bright for Wolverhampton. But for me, Arsenal not signing a striker was criminal. I don't think Lacazette offers that much anymore. And Eddie Nketiah, I've never been that high on. I think around them they've got some really they got a lot of players with really high ceilings who I really rate, and I don't really like Arsenal that much, and mainly because of how, it's hard to say, but the fan perception online is just, I just don't like it. I'm not a big fan of football media either, like these people who have players as their picture and their names like Lucky Lacazette or something like that, But for me, I like Odegaard, I like Smith Rowe, I like Saka. if they give someone, they put a striker up there who's a finisher, someone, because those players are going to create no matter what. I'd be worried for Wolves, but I see Wolves getting a 2-0 win here. Defensively too strong. And also, this could, propel Wolves into a battle for top 4 for me. Sorry. West Ham, European, Thursday, Sunday is not great. I just don't see him being able to keep up with the likes of Tottenham and United, personally. Arsenal, for me, just don't have a striker, and I cannot see them really challenging. I think it could be between Wolves, United and Spurs towards the end of the season, Rod.
100%, mate. And I remember you touching on Trincao a couple of minutes ago. I remember earlier on in the year you brought him into your fantasy team because you got rather excited and he let you down.
Yeah, but I like it. I don't think it was necessarily, like, in terms of fantasy, you got great players on fantasy because of what they do. And it's a game which is based on results. Are you a good goal scorer? Are you a good clean sheet stopper? You know what I mean? Whereas he passes the eye test for me. He just looks fluid on the ball, man. The way he moves with the ball. And he's not afraid to get shot off. He excites me. And I think if they could get him on a permanent deal as well, I'd be very interested to see. I think he's an upgrade on Adama Traore.
I mean, Adama Traore going to Barca does free up a spot for, obviously, Wolves to invest in.
Yeah.
So, for me, though, going forward, they are quite exciting with, obviously, Podence, Trincao,
which is weird, right? Because they've only scored 19 goals all season.
And what's his name? Neto, is it?
Yeah, he's brilliant.
He really excited me. So they've got some serious attacking talent, and I think Jose Sarr in goal has been incredible this year. He's probably been, if not the best, second best, third, maybe. I'll probably go as far as saying he's probably been the best keeper in the league this year in terms of consistency.
Yeah, I think that's fair as well. Obviously, there's a lot of big goalkeepers up there, but for me, I think the best Premier League goalkeeper is Emi Martinez, but I think on performance-wise so far this season, I think Sarr would be in my team of the year. Anyway, Rod, just before we end the show, any moves in fantasy, what are you going to do? Are you transferring in, out? You got any free transfers?
So, he's back. Mr. Mo, obviously he's been away at AFCON. They've got Leicester. He's eager to come back to training. I imagine he wants to take out his AFCON frustration. So I made the move earlier today. Trossard to Salah. So yeah, I'm 4-4-2. Foster, Cancelo captain, Dean, Trent, Reguilon, Salah, Bowen, Fernandes, Jota, Antonio and Watkins. And yeah, obviously Trossard for Salah leaves me 1.3 million in the bank to then play with in the next upcoming game weeks. But yeah, Trossard to Salah's my move, and Mo's back.
Yeah, man, I need to make moves, Rod. I'm debating doing a wild card, man. I've only got one free transfer, so if I was to bring in Salah, it's going to cost me 4 points. So I'm tempted with the a wild card for me. It's just like with United, it's so hard because I'd love to have Ronaldo up there. If we could consistently create chances. Obviously, he was shit the other night. Don't get me wrong. He was poor against Middlesbrough. He just had his wrong boots on, I felt like. But I feel like if United were consistent, I'd love to keep him up there. But I'm probably going to be looking at moving out Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes now and bringing in Salah. And, potentially, I'm not too sure with the striker. It might be Weghorst and maybe look to move out Antonio, who's someone who I think fell off quite a bit and hasn't been performing that well in fantasy.
Weghorst, mate. I love Weghorst at 6.5 million. With their games in hand, I like that shout from you, and especially moving like Antonio on, probably maybe Dennis. Definitely one to bear in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about the transfers, guys, that if you have made it this far, I really doubt it. But if you have enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. But we did record a transfer video that you may have missed where we just go through every Premier League team's business if it was worth going through. A lot of teams actually didn't do much. We kind of just skipped over them. But we talked everything from, like, you know, Aston Villa, Newcastle, United not doing fuck all. You know, be sure to go check that one out, guys. Thank you for watching. Rod, any last words?
Up the Verkhorst.
Up the Verkhorst. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like. Comment down below as well. Tell us if there's anything you want to see. Until next time, we'll see you. Bye.